Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I guess I have the task of being your moderator for this discussion, making sure that we get the most out of the time. And
Yeah, so
looking
it's going to
forward to
be
that very much.
awesome. Pat is going to be moderating our mental health discussion. And like Pat, I think you're literally the perfect person. You're the perfect individual up to the task. So this is definitely going to be really, really cool. And then it looks like we have another, some of our other individuals. Pat, did you just want to give yourself a real quick intro? A little bit who
Yeah,
you are?
sure. My name's Pat Olney. I've been writing for about 4 years now. Spent 30 years in the business world, working as an executive, traveling the world, and really have got the opportunity to work on my true passion, which is writing, and enjoying that very much.
All right, beautiful. And let's see, without further ado, let me bring up some of the other guests to the stage. Welcome back, Ms. Natalie Locke. Long time no see, my friend. Welcome back. And then we're also bringing up, it looks like we got the lovely, the wonderful Miss Laura Nettles. Welcome, welcome, Laura. Glad to have you here, my friend. And the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Chris Lilly. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And let's see. Let me make sure. I'm trying to make sure we have all of ours. Okay. So I know with we had one or two other guests, right? One of them is sick, unfortunately. So we had one or two other guests not in attendance, but this is going to be perfect. And it looks like making sure I have everybody. And I think we have Miss Penelope Hartley joining on as well. Let's see. But no camera. So maybe, or maybe it's just me.
She's there.
Can you not
Right
see
there.
me?
Front and center.
I can see you.
Do you guys see? Oh, she doesn't show up on my screen. Do you guys see Penelope?
Yeah.
Top center.
Oh, that is so crazy. I see her screen, but it does not show up. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, I can do
Yeah.
anything I want.
Penelope, you're getting like the psychic tarot, the psychic like energy of the ambiance. I wonder if Jezebel's somewhere around here.
She can be seen on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube and I don't see. I just see like a blank, like empty screen. It's okay. I'll refresh. As long as you guys can see her, chat. As long as the chat can see her, that's what matters.
Appropriate here. It's one of those words I always read, but I never knew the definition. But does Penelope carte blanche? Do whatever you want. Isn't that what it means?
Penelope Hartley? It does today.
No. Carte blanche.
Oh, carte blanche. Yes.
That's what it means. It means you can do what you want.
Yeah, like blank check, I think, is that it translates to.
Okay.
Yeah, carte blanche.
See, it's
one of Penelope Hartley, and I was like, it means that today.
All right. Well, beautiful, my friends. I know, Pat, we had set up just a little slideshow just to set it off. So I'm going to let you guys take it away. I'll let you do your thing. And I think if we throw it up here, perfect.
Yeah, we don't need to spend a lot of... Thanks. We don't need to spend a lot of time in the slides because this is a discussion segment. Getting a bunch of creatives together to have an organized discussion, what could go wrong, right? But when you brought this topic up, Jared, I actually did a little research, and there's a study from 2008 from the Journal of Clinical Neuroscience that studied writers, and it showed that they had significantly higher rates of mental health issues than their control group. 80% of the ones they studied had some form of mood disorder, 30% had some sort of bipolar disorder, 30% had alcohol abuse issues. And so there's something about being a creative person and creative process that puts extra stress, I think, on our mental health. And that's really what we want to talk about today. So I'd like to give a quick intro to my fellow panelists here. Chris, and each of them is going to obviously do the talking here, and you can clean up after me. But Chris Lilly is a certified tarot reader for screenwriters and authors with Flow Your Mojo. That sounds like a really interesting job there. Penelope, poet, cat whisperer, and experimental literature author, and also, I guess, co-host for this great podcast. Natalie, we heard from already, expert in flash fiction and short story writing, and also novellas. So good to see you again on this session. And then we have Laura, right? Laura Nettles. So special effects artist, author, tuber, and horror writer. So we've got a good mix of talent here. Maybe the best is to start by hearing from each of you about some of the challenges you've experienced and what you'd like to cover today. And obviously we want to see and hear from people on the chat as well. So Penelope, you're the top square on my sidebar. So we start with you.
Okay. What am I doing?
You're going to, anything you'd like to offer about sort of challenges in mental health as you've gone through your writing process?
Absolutely.
That,
yes. I was first diagnosed with having anxiety and depression in high school. So my challenges with mental health have included all of my exploits in my life. And writing in particular, I think that there's creativity, I think, does carry with it its own set of unique ways of trying to navigate a world that isn't necessarily always suitable for the creative. But also writing in particular, and especially being an independent author and publisher of your work, has its own set of setbacks that can affect your mental health. So I've actually, I absolutely feel like this is a great discussion for people to have. Like you said, everybody goes through something, some sort of, I personally felt a lot of like I didn't belong as a writer for a long time. And you just, it's such a solitary commitment that you often wonder how people are going to take you once they start reading your work or whatever. So I think there's a lot of fears that are associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done.
Oh, that's good. And we'll come back around because for me, at least, one of the things I hope we get to are coping techniques that we can help each other with. And just having this community, Jared, by the way, is an excellent start for supporting people with their mental health so they can recognize they're not alone. It's a very supportive community, and that's a great help too. Natalie, you're next on my screen. Maybe a few words from you.
Well, I already talked about being a mom of two. I got 2 dogs and a cat, and a husband. He's still around. He didn't abandon me yet. Yes, he's in the kitchen, honey. My son's on the floor playing on my phone. I would say with all of that, because I also have a full-time job, and that job requires me to travel sometimes, like, being out of the country at times. The biggest thing I had to learn was kind of realistic goals. And so here's one coping mechanism as someone with anxiety. I started a 3-goal system that when I'm trying to do something, I set 3 goals. There is the dream goal. Everything's perfect. There's the life happens goal. And then there is the life really happened goal. Like and that way I got 3 measurements. And if I hit any of them, I'm happy. And it's just creating this idea of that there's things that are achievable. And that 3 goals, that includes time management as well. Like if I set something down to do something for an hour, I assume it's going to take 3 hours immediately just because I have kids. Please don't shake the table. I got kids, I got work, something can pop up. I mean, like one of my dogs, she has seizures. I've been on live stream before and I had to cut out real quick and tend to her. So it's realistic goals is one of the things that I try to do.
Good. That's good. And so, for those of you out there, sorry, I'm going to be on the New York Times bestseller list within 6 months of launching my book. Be fantastic if it happens, but having some realistic goals and sometimes thinking about what's the worst that can happen is a helpful tool I learned going through DBT therapy, which is a specific branch of cognitive behavior therapy. This is quite helpful. Next, though, on my list here is Laura. Laura, maybe a few words from you by introduction.
Awesome. I'm Laura Nettles. I mostly write horror, although I do dabble in like the fantasy, sci-fi, romance, everywhere. But horror is my bread and butter. I have depression, anxiety, borderline psychosis, hallucinations. It's great. But one thing that I love about writing horror is that it gives me a safe outlet to recontextualize what I see, what I've experienced, so that I can either dive into what actually happened, or I can take control and change the narrative. So I can write what I wish had happened. So yeah, it's very fun. I love horror.
It's a great outlet for you by the sound of it. So
yeah.
Well, we'll be coming back to you, Laura, and I'd like to just make sure we pick up Chris here too. Last but not least, Chris in the panel.
Yeah, so I'm Chris. I am a tarot reader for Writer's Block. I approach writing from more of a spiritual kind of standpoint, but more grounded. It's not as woo-woo as everyone says tarot or makes out tarot to be. But I like to also approach writing from a standpoint of what happens when you're not putting words on the table or words on the screen. So it's almost like, in order to, when we're writing, we have to like sit up straight. But in order to sit up straight, we need to strengthen our bodies. So in order to strengthen our bodies, we sometimes maybe need to exercise. So it's almost just kind of like, and with exercise comes a lot of mental health, appropriate mental health stuff as well. So it just kind of releases different things and different chemicals in our body. So I just like to approach writing from a little bit of a different standpoint and just kind of approach with more of healing our inner selves and just kind of acknowledging who we truly are as actual and where we actually are in the present moment, so that we're not overwhelmed with the bigger picture. So instead of focusing on the big book, let's focus on the one chapter or the one scene or the one thing. So let's just kind of not overwhelm ourselves into paralysis, and let's give ourselves the next step to make sure that we are continuing on our writing journey.
I think you raised a really good point there, Chris. One of the lessons I learned in DBT as well is they call it the please skill. Everybody's got their acronyms, but if you don't take care of your basic health, you can't actually function in any job, including writing. So that means getting your sleep, means taking medications if you have them. It means exercise and getting some physical activity, whether it's yoga or going for a walk. Sometimes you can find inspiration on those, as we heard from Natalie in the session before. And it also is about regulating your emotions. And so really good advice for everybody. Has anybody out there in the chat verse or in our panel ever experienced the sort of bipolar nature of writing something and then going, this is like the best thing I've ever produced, and then 2 days later, my work is terrible. Why am I doing this? Yeah, how do we cope with that?
That's my job. That's my job. No, I think the best thing is when you write something and you think it's mediocre and you come back to it a couple of days later and it's actually very good. There's something very validating about being content with what you're writing as a writer. And I think as a creative, that's where you have to come from first, is enjoying what you do and writing what you like. I think that the more cooks you let into the kitchen sometimes, even though feedback is super important, you have to be true to yourself first. And that can be a challenge in itself when people have different expectations of what your writing should be. I start to feel pulled in a bunch of different directions. So my baseline is, am I enjoying writing? And am I enjoying what I'm reading? And yeah, if I look back at it and I think it's crap, then I cut it out because I'm not enjoying it. This has to be a process where I'm exploring and expressing myself. I don't know if anybody else feels like that, but that's where I'm at with it. Just being content with my own writing.
I don't know if this is true for the other panelists, but the writing part. My wife just said this to me the other day. She said, "Why are you miserable about this writing stuff now? It's supposed to make you feel good." And what I realized was, The writing feels good, but everything else, sharing it, putting it out there, taking feedback, going out into the, cybersphere, which is overwhelming, and trying to figure out how to promote it, which we're going to, obviously talk about or hear about later in the podcast. That's the part that can be overwhelming and unpleasant. So it's those two together. How do we cope with that, I guess? Anybody have any good suggestions?
Well, I'm just going to kind of go back to sort of maybe answer both the questions at the same time. I mentioned this back in a prior Right Now writers group that I think that I'm always at mediocre, always. I never really think of myself as awesome or horrible. I just kind of like, if I get the good stuff, but then I know if I feel bad about it, I can always work up. But I never think of myself as the most amazing person in the world. Not like, I know I probably need to be my own cheerleader a little bit more, but I just kind of, if I'm mediocre, I know I'm at least happy.
Yeah,
and I don't have to worry so much about being hated or loved.
There's a funny combination you have to have of genuine humility, but the sense of I can do it, I can accomplish it, I am good at it, and it's worth doing. So you have to be able to blend those two feelings together. Anybody else have any thoughts on that topic?
I think just to speak to what Chris just said, don't let perfection get in the way of a good story. And I think that we can rack our brains and try to do the best possible job that we can. But at the end of the day, like a finished book that tells a really good story, probably not mediocre, but,
That's just what I do to keep myself going through the day, just to make sure that I can continue going to the next project.
And I think that's super important too, as a writer, with the demands that we have with like completing a book and moving on to the next one. You have to have some sort of system in place whereby you can let something go and move on to the next project.
Yeah. And what was I think we talked about this in a chat, the old quote from maybe even all the way back to Da Vinci: art is never finished, it's only abandoned. I could go back and re-edit the book I've already put out there and make it better, but I've got other ideas to explore and other things to do. And you have to know when to let go of something too, right? Maybe we'll go to Laura. You raised your hand. I was going to ask you about what it's like to deal with some of the challenges you brought up, and if you find that there's times that are good for writing, if it helps, or if there's times that you know aren't good, or.
Well, going back to the question of like when to let it go, and so it's I have ADHD pretty bad, so I will hyper focus on a story. So I do a lot of flash fiction and short stories and drabbles, so the 100-word stories. And so I get that dopamine hit of I wrote the end. Hooray, I accomplished something. And so I will write the end, and immediately, because it's so short, I will edit it, and I'll just hyper focus on it for a couple hours until I'm like, okay, send it off to somebody, get it back. It's really short, edit it right there, and be like, okay, I'm done hyper focusing on it. My interest is like, okay, yeah, it's good. And then I'll submit it to a magazine or something. And then the dread sets in, like, maybe you didn't edit it enough. Like, you missed a word or something, or it's like, oh no. And so I just sit there in dread, waiting for the magazine to come out or the anthology to come out. And then it comes out, and I'm just like this, reading my story in it. I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. Like, it's okay to feel the despair of like, I didn't do enough, when you've tracked, I've done this many edits, like I have put in the work. It's gonna be okay. So
does it help to think of it as a process rather than a product for people out there? I mean, somebody said that to me once. It's like, finish that, move on to the next, make it better. So accepting the fact that everything that you put out there isn't going to be perfect because you're changing and evolving as a writer.
So I am one of those people who started writing with fan fiction, where you get instant feedback of like, yeah, this is good, next chapter. So I want that feedback of, yeah, this is good, we want it for a magazine. So I usually write 2 different submission calls. So I write with the intention of getting it published. So there's a place called publishtodeath.blogspot.com, and they have a running list of every submission open across all the genres throughout the whole entire year. It is a massive list. Everything from Chicken Soup to the Soul to Splatterpunk. So
What was that?
publishedtodeath.blogspot.com.
I'm gonna put
So
that in.
I
Write that
will
down.
go through and look. It's sorted by the date that the submission closes. So I will look and like, okay, what's due in a week? What's due in 2 weeks? And be like, okay, I'm going to write my short story. I'm going to write my flash fiction, and I'll do it racing against that clock. So I get that ADHD crunch of like, okay, I only have this much time. I got to do it. And it's really fun to be able to be like, yes, I hit the end. Yes, I finished editing. Yes, I got beta reader feedback. And yes, I submitted it. Even if it gets a rejection, that's fine. So
Chris, you look like you've got something to chime in with there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna say I'm the exact opposite of her. I have executive dysfunction, so I want to do it. I just sometimes have a hard time getting in front of my laptop. I want to do it. I just
Yeah. I also sometimes will have the executive dysfunction when it gets bad with the depression. And so what I do for then is I have moving target goals. So I will have, like Natalie said, like the good goal. But if I am running out of spoons and this is I need to stay in bed day, I will literally go in and change my goal and be like, okay, I need to take into account what's actually going on and change my goal. So I have started a few of these short stories and stuff and never submitted them. I never actually finished them. So it's okay. Like, and also don't have a goal to have so many accepted, have a goal to have so many submitted, because that's what you have control over.
On that note, which is probably a good segue, actually, I think that we all need to practice forgiving ourselves with our mental health, and just forgiving ourselves that life does come up. Sometimes we don't get that submission. Sometimes we don't write that story. So
yeah,
sometimes you get laid off and your life implodes.
And even like how far we think our writing journey should be on, comparing ourselves to other people. Everyone's on their own journey. So when you learn to not compare yourself to other people and just say, this is my journey, I forgive myself for going to that movie instead of writing. I forgive myself for avoiding it instead, or like being depressed. Just forgiving yourself for not being able to get your writing journey in for that day or the goal or whatever, and just knowing that the next day you can pick up right where you left off. So I think forgiving yourself is a very big thing that we all need to also just like blanket some of this mental health stuff on.
That's an excellent point, Chris. I think people, I've been trying to monitor the chats as well, and there's a lot of folks talking about being perfectionists, which I think it's a two-sided coin, like a lot of the attributes that creatives have. It's great because you're going to scour that piece of work, and you're going to purge out the typos and get characters to say exactly what you want them to say. But at the end of the day, then I don't know if it's like this for anyone else. The first thing I wrote when I shared it with people, I wanted them to think it was the best thing they ever read. And when a couple of people said, it's not my thing, that was hard. I had to learn that sometimes it just isn't someone's thing, your style of writing or your genre or whatever. And so you got to be realistic and also give yourself some grace with that too. But as far as the writing cadence, sometimes things happen, as you said, Laura, and you're not going to be able to hit deadlines, and that's okay. Natalie, anything in your experience you want to share about perfectionism? Or, I mean, you do a lot of flash fiction, so you're probably very good at just getting in and getting out and hitting it quick.
Yeah, so with flash fiction, what really helped me was that my goal was to create. That was the goal. It didn't say create good, create perfect, or whatever. It was create. And by giving myself permission to just create and move on, I had to become comfortable with being uncomfortable because it wasn't perfect. And it was practically exposure therapy for me. And so now it's okay for me not to have the best thing. And, but I will say, one of the things that really stood out to me, and I mentioned this I the end of my presentation is that I always made sure, no matter how much I disliked a story, I made sure to find at least one thing good, whether it was the chosen title, the ending, a flow of something or whatever, just something that I liked, or one line that I thought was good. And that helped that forgiveness of realizing that I'm growing, I'm getting better, and by having non word count goals and having non, like, I must write for 30 minutes a day goals, like certain goals that were more focused on creation and content versus a quantity, it really helped me do that. And then also give myself I have a rule of, if I triple the time frame that it's going to be for anything, and so that way there was always a built-in buffer for something was going to happen. Kids got sick or work took over or something, and then I still got self-care outside of that, and I started putting myself first too. There were some days where I just didn't write, or I put in a buffer. Like I did Flash Fiction February, where it was a flash a day in February, and after that I was like, I'm not writing for 2 weeks. It's like, I'm good and stuff. So it was having that balance.
Thank you. I saw a comment too about comparing yourself to others. Chatzel, thank you. Is setting yourself up for failure. That's very true. It's hard to avoid. When I read something that we all can appreciate good fiction, and when you see it, it gives me what I think of as the Salieri complex. It's like you appreciate it and you wish you could match it, but there's always going to be somebody that's going to be doing something perhaps at a better level than you. It's about your own process. I think like a golf game. You're competing against yourself, really, and trying to do better. So perhaps we could take it in a little different direction for a few minutes now. Is there anybody in the panel that uses writing as their own form of therapy or as a way of getting some things? Yeah, Chris?
I finished the question. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but
No. As a way of getting some things that are troubling in your mind down on paper. They always tell you in therapy, if it's bothering you, write it down, but it's a very public way to do it. Does anybody do that? Find it helpful?
So about 10 years ago, I produced a web series called Just Us Guys, and it's on YouTube. You can all take a look at it. It's essentially Gilmore Girls with guys. It's about a gay dad who has a best friend relationship with his straight son. And the lead character, I will say, is very much so sort of me, Scott, the dad. I'm not a father. I don't have a kid, anything like that. But the fights that he and his mother, his conservative mother, would get into are the ones that I kind of imagined what I would get into when I would talk to my mom. Because my mom and I are not talking. My mom and I are, I don't even want to say healing because we're not even there yet. It's a whole thing. But I just didn't feel seen by her. So I needed to find a space to actually put myself where I could, like what Laura said, control the situation, control the narrative. What would I have said in that conversation to her when I was 17? What would I have said to her in that conversation when I was whatever age? So it just kind of helped me kind of control the narrative a little bit of what my relationship is with someone who doesn't pay attention to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And did you find that helpful?
Yeah, it did. The web series ended and I went through a whole identity crisis. So I'm trying to get myself back into that. But right now what I'm doing is I'm writing a story called Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch, which is a Sabrina the Teenage Witch meets Monster High. And right now I'm actually letting my inner child know that it was okay for him to be gay as he was growing up. And that's kind of, as I was growing up, I was not given that permission. And so in the story, he's an out 13-year-old boy. He's just kind of being himself, trying to find himself in the world, but he's got supportive parents. and he's got support. He's trying to learn his magic and stuff. It's a whole thing. But I've learned that I'm doing this for myself to let my inner child, Parker is his name for everyone to know, to let him know that it's okay that he can grow up gay, and it's safe. I'm a safe space for him to be around.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. And Penelope, I know I'm a fan of Datura's, you know that. And I know that was a process for you. Is there anything you'd like to share about how that worked?
So Datura's, I like to contemplate the dark things that linger in the caves of our psyche. And one of my goals with writing Datura's Requiem was to understand. I had a lot of relationships that turned out to be very dismissive and at times emotionally and physically abusive. And I wanted to understand that mentality from the point of view of the guy. So, because I thought that experience, because it's my belief that we are all connected to each other. And I think that empathizing with and understanding and being able to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes is integral to combating the darkness that causes us to do very, to sabotage ourselves, in my case. So I went into that. I went into the concept of a guy who could have been any of the guys that I dated, and I explored his life from his point of view with the Datura's Requiem. And what I discovered was that even though he came off as a very unlikable character at the beginning, he was somebody that you could easily empathize with throughout the book because he had his own trials. He had his own stuff going on. And I realized my takeaway from this and trying to deal with my own mental health issues and trying to understand myself better was that there's a reason why people can't show up for you. And if they can't show up for themselves, there's no way they're going to be showing up for you. So the book itself became a talisman of my own spiritual healing journey. I've never written anything cathartic. I like to write spirituality and ray gun fights. Like I like a lot of crazy, weird camp stuff. And this just was a completely different experience for me, writing for catharsis and putting my experience and myself into the world, into manifesting it as a book, was an attempt, I believe, to help me heal my broken heart. And to a degree, it has started that process, because I think that the first thing, that forgiveness, forgiving yourself, Chris, you brought that up, forgiving ourselves for not always showing up for ourselves, extends to forgiving the people in your life who have hurt you. And for me, it was a matter of understanding what situations they could have found themselves in that would not have allowed them to be the person I wanted them to be. And essentially my takeaway at the end was I need to be the person that I need to be for myself. And that person was a writer. So that was the experience.
It's fascinating because that's what therapists will tell you. And you found your way to that conclusion through the process of writing. So it certainly can be very good therapy. Chris, were you trying to chime in with a point there?
I was, but she kind of said it at the very end. I wrote down a note here. You said, if they can't show up for themselves, how are they going to show up for you? And that's one of the things that we as writers need to understand, that we need to show up for ourselves and forget, like, it's not even just forgiving ourselves, but it's not even forgiving them. It's just more of not taking on their burdens onto us. Well, we have our own burdens as well, so that we can keep going. So when you ended it, like how you ended it, it's just kind of like you need to show up for yourself and make sure that you separate your problems from somebody else's problems, and make sure you don't have so much weighing on your back from other people's issues. I mean, everyone else, we're all human. We all have our own, but the more that you carry other people's stuff, you're not going to be able to get your own stuff out.
It's absolutely
I think it's great that we're able to have this kind of conversation. Think about how much the public conversation about mental health has evolved over the last 30 years, to where people, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to acknowledge it, and we're able to sit in a forum like this. And thanks, Jared, for providing that opportunity. I also think that better global awareness can lead us to write better characters that are more three-dimensional. In your case, Penelope, villains can be very black and white, and that's a kind of fiction you can write, but I'm a fan of deep characters where you can empathize even with the so-called bad guy, And really, it's a mental health. You're basically framing some of these as mental health issues rather than good and bad. And I think that adds a lot of depth to a story.
I think that everybody has redeemable qualities, and I think that the people that see things in very black and white terms, like, may have a tendency not to see the bad in themselves. I think that writers have this very peculiar ability to struggle and contemplate issues on the page, and I think that gives us tend to have a little bit more depth because of that, because we are willing to look at ourselves as an imperfect or a human becoming, as one of my therapists told me, and to be okay with that, especially in the isolation of writing, on a page. And I think that understanding that we all have people who don't have imperfections, when you're writing a character that has no imperfections, it's boring. Nobody wants to read about that. And it's because nobody actually can relate to that, because we all have flaws. And writers just have the sensibility to sit down and figure out what those flaws are and how to put them in a story in a way that says something intriguing about themselves that also speaks to their audience as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. Chris, are you looking to, I see your finger sticking up
just-
at the bottom of the screen there.
I was just going to also comment again on Penelope. She was saying something about the villain, and you were saying something about having a villain's point of view. Technically, yes, the villain in the story is the villain, but the villain doesn't think that they're the villain.
Yeah.
Right.
The villain thinks that they're doing everything right. Why are they doing it? So as the writer, you can actually ask, why is the villain doing this? It's maybe he's doing it for his family. Maybe he's doing it for society, but he's just doing it in a different way. Like, the villain doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. So that's just kind of another way to approach how to write a villain. But that's a completely different.
I think it's more nuanced, right? So I want to throw another topic out there just to keep the discussion moving. And I'm watching the chat. Please, anybody following the discussion, if there's a particular theme within mental health and writing that you'd like to cover, throw it up there on the chat. So we got a great panel of folks here with a lot of experience and a lot of varied experience. So we can suit the discussion to your wishes. Fear of failure is a big one, right? Especially for those writers starting out or who have maybe not got the traction that they wanted. It'd be great to hear from each of you about whether you've encountered that and how you have coped with it. I'm going to start with Natalie now. We haven't heard from you for a while.
Because I'm trying to practice actually letting others speak. I have a tendency to speak too much, and the feedback I've gotten over the years is like, let others speak. And it's funny because one of those things is people are saying the things that I was going to say anyways when I do that. And so it made me realize I needed to sit back more. So either way, Penelope, you and I are like minds apparently. You're fine. It's something I've been working on.
Same. I talk way too much. I talk too much.
Okay, what was the question again?
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. So I mean, just to tee it up, I went from being an executive and in business, and then I wrote a book, and it was a big step to put it out there to everybody that I had built up a reputation with in the world, and to say this is something I did that could be laughed at, that could be someone saying, why are you doing this? And I found that very difficult to get over that hump. It took me a year to decide to do it, actually. So that, how about in your case? Have you experienced that fear of failure? How have you coped with it?
With writing, not so much, because writing for me has always been a hobby, and it's more of a retirement plan because I probably at least got 8 to 12 more years in my job before I can leave comfortably. And so I haven't had that fear of failure. When I shifted, because I did query a lot and stuff like that, and it was more I needed to focus on setting goals that I could achieve that didn't depend on someone else to say something for it to be achieved. So getting an agent, I can't control that because that requires an agent to say yes. But I can control how many flashes I write, or or at least getting a draft of a prompt book created, or all these things. And that's what helped me stop focusing on failure, because I realized my failures were because my goals were needing other people's input, and it relied on me convincing other people. And you can't control other people and stuff. So that's
Oh,
kind
that's
of
good.
that's how I was able to shift my mindset from failure. And then anytime that it seemed like a goal wasn't achievable, I changed the goal. So I kind of changed.
Yeah, I mean, as Chris said earlier, I mean, these are goals we're giving ourselves. It's okay to also
Yeah.
let ourselves off the hook when life intervenes, right? I mean, it's self-imposed. Laura, did you have any experience you want to share with fear of failure? How long have you been writing?
I've been writing for
In the
5
beginning
years.
was 5 years. How was it in the beginning for you?
The first thing I wrote was a YA sci-fi during the month of Nano 2019. And I won Nano, and my draft was like 51K. So I started off with that high, and then I reread and I could not get through it. It's so many tense shifts, and it was just so bad. But I had done the goal. So fear of failure for me, I think it comes in a couple different aspects. There's the, what's the beta reader gonna say? Have I failed this story? Like, is it beyond saving? And also, am I going to get rejected from what I've submitted to? And so I think that the fear of failure with beta readers, what I've been doing is going to people that I trust, that I know won't just be a yes man, be like,
yeah,
that's great.
What Natalie, just like Natalie said earlier, is you want to find people that are going to give you real feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And,
you don't
and the
want
trust
people,
part makes it easy, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't want people who are going to be belligerent and be like, right, what were you thinking? Yeah. So you want something in between. And so being able to have people that you can talk to who have read it and be able to talk over their notes, and you can take those notes and like make a game plan out of them, that has been very helpful. I have I think it's a paranormal romance right now with beta readers right now. And so it's very, I pants the thing. So it's like, does this need to be taken down to the studs, or is it kind of okay? So it's like, I'm getting feedback from one beta reader as they read it right now. And so a lot of it is like, yeah, you're going in too fast into the romance. It's like, yeah, I know. So it's just being able to take a step back and have a more clear perspective on the feedback and see where they're coming from. And are they being too prescriptive? Are they trying to twist it to what they want it to be, like plot wise? Or are they trying to help you realize your vision? Has been helpful. And then fear of failure for the submission. I collected a bunch of mine and self-published a collection. So I've had over 30 stories published in magazine and anthologies. So I put some in here, and I put a ton of the ones that were rejected, but I did hire a developmental editor and a line editor. So they didn't make it into the magazines, but they have been edited professionally since then. So being able to have them not die in the ether, but actually come together was really nice. So it was a failure momentarily, but eventually they saw the light of day. It was very nice. And I have gotten a revise and resubmit for my middle grade horror that I'm trying to get traditionally published as a novel. So I have done over 10 drafts of this book. I've queried so many people. So you just have to take a look at your goals. What is your main goal? And what is true failure to you? Like, what is your definition of success? And
I think that's a
go
good
from there.
point. Natalie raised a point too about realistic goals. I'm going to come to you, Chris, and I'm going to come to you, Penelope, because I know you guys have good thoughts to offer, but I want to share one of my own, even though I'm your moderator. I had an aha moment that I found really helpful, because in the beginning, I sort of imagined that these great writers were just sort of Mozart-like, putting the perfect words on the page in their first draft, and why, so I felt very attached to my first drafts, and then realized if I went back and read the final product compared to the first, I was wise to significantly edit it. And I saw an interview with Justin Hurwitz, I think his name is. He was the composer for the score for La La Land. Everybody familiar with that movie? Has some tremendous music in it. And I thought, wow, there's like 8 beautiful songs. And he said he wrote 2,000 samples for Damien Chazelle, and he liked 8 of them. And so he put in an unbelievable amount of work, and out of that came 8 songs that were considered worthy. And so even the greats, I think vast majority of them, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that you don't see underneath the waterline. So when you're putting that in yourself, you're in good company. And so that was a big aha for me. Chris, you had a point you wanted to make earlier. Let's come to you.
I just like to look at fear of success a little differently, and I've learned this a while recently. It's the fear of failure is a different, or a fear of success. I'm sorry, fear of failure is what I like to look at differently. Fear of success is probably something I'm looking at still myself in general, but fear of failure, my thought about that is that there is no such thing as failure, and it's only data. It's there's a story that's come out that I've read before about how someone has gone through a bunch of like lawyer stuff. They've gone to college, they've learned all this stuff, but then the last semester they're like, I don't like this. This is not fun. This is not what I want to do. So they went off and they went to like the Bahamas and opened an ice cream shop. And their parents were like, why are you doing this? Like you were so close and you're about to fail this. Like, why are you doing it? And she's like, I don't want to do it. So it's just more, it's for failure. I feel like it's only data. You've learned about yourself along the way of whatever it is, the progress that you've made, and you've learned either, hey, this doesn't work for me, and I have learned a new thing about myself, and I can go off in a new direction. Maybe like with not getting an agent, you've learned it's not a failure if they don't take you on. You've learned what they were looking for, so then you can take that data and apply it to your next thing, apply it to your next submission. So it's just kind of like a journey instead of looking at failure stuff, looking at everything being a failure, look at everything as a learning experience. Did that
No, that's a great point. No, it is. It's to not make it so binary, right? And so this is one of the things I learned actually participating in DBT therapy too, is a lot of folks who are high IQ and creative also struggle with looking at things in black and white. It's either a success or it's a failure. I'm either really good or I suck. And understanding that that's not really the way things are in the world, that things are definitely non-binary in many ways in life is an important thing to understand. Penelope, did you have something you wanted to add to the fear of failure discussion?
I think that
or fear of success?
I think that for me, it's a little different. I don't have a choice. For me, writing has been a calling that I put off for decades. Gathering, like Chris said, gathering other experiences in other areas, learning about different things. And I would always come back to writing poetry. And eventually I found kind of my rhythm with prose. But if it's a calling for you, like it is for me, there's no way of avoiding it. You have to do it. So it becomes not do I fail, do I succeed, but a matter of this is a part of who I am. The process is a part of who I am. And I think that once if it feels like that to you, then it's a very wonderful feeling that this is an extension of myself, and not even an artifice, and like an organic, spiritual, however you want to describe it. This is a process that I am a part of, and it no longer becomes about success or failure, but being a writer. So I think yeah, go ahead.
I was say I saw Natalie's thing about fear of success and fear of failure in the comments, and I just had one more thing about fear of success. Actually, when someone labels you as not as successful, a success to someone else is different than a success to yourself. Maybe a success to you is someone buying one story. It's not being on the New York bestseller list. Maybe your success is just I published it. Maybe that's it. That's all it is. And that's all. And that's all. A success to someone else. Fear of success is just one success can't be compared to another. If that makes sense. I don't know. I just wanted to comment on that, and I didn't want to interrupt.
I think for me, the success is, did I tell the story I wanted to tell? Did I write this story out?
Yeah.
Now I got to make money on doing that if I'm going to be a writer. So, I mean, obviously there's other considerations to make that freak me out and give me stress. But I think as a writer, did I just tell the story that I was born to write, that I was put on this earth, manifested at this particular moment to say, to sing, whatever, however you do it? Yes, then it was a success. And everything else comes second to that.
Yep.
I think about food because I think about food a lot, actually. And I think about, there's a Michelin star restaurant and there's McDonald's. McDonald's is successful if you measure by how many billions have been served and the economic model. Is it what I would like to eat on a Saturday night with a nice glass of Chianti? No. And so maybe it is to be a niche writer for someone that appreciates your genre or your style. And as long as there's those people willing to read your work, it could be 10 of them or 1,000, right? So that's how I've come to think of it, is I'm not going to try to be McDonald's. I'm going to produce what is in there to produce. It's hard to actually write something you're not, I think. I'm looking to see if we have any other. We talked about fear. We talked about belonging, actually. And again, I think this community is truly a community and a very supportive one. So I'm sure if anybody on the chat is looking for support on this topic, you can reach out to anyone on this panel for advice or some help. Happy to do it. You're pointing down at the question that's in front of us.
Oh, no, that's
sign language for yes.
This is yes in sign language.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's yes in, that's yes in sign language. Sorry, that's what
Agreed. No, that's fine. We talked about realistic goals. We talked about forgiving yourself, which I think is a really important one, because I imagine most of you out there are the hardest critics of your work and hardest on yourselves. Are there any other topics we should cover? We throw it open for other questions. We have one here. Anyone find as they write they're trying to overcome someone else's mental illness that they were affected by? Anybody on the panel recognize
I'll throw
that?
in, there was a ex that I was hung up on for some reason, and when I put them as a character that the main character ended up breaking up with, and the fight that ensued, writing from both perspectives in that moment, I realized just how manipulative this person was and how narcissistic they were and how wrong they were for me. And it really kind of just helped me go, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, we're good to be over. And I didn't mean to throw them in there. It just kind of ended up evolving, but it really helped me like sever whatever hold they had.
Good. Any other stories?
Just a word of caution for when you're writing characters with mental illness, not to paint it as like every person with this mental illness is a deranged, murderous person that you should be terrified of. So be careful on your representation of people with mental illness so that you don't paint the entire community.
No, I think it's a really good point, Laura. And I've been reflecting on, when I was reflecting on this topic, I was thinking about writing as a help to dealing with mental illness because it feels good. I was thinking about the dark side of it, which is unrealistic expectations, the anxiety, the fear of failure. And I was thinking about that third one, about how we bring it into characters, and it allows a much more nuanced version. And as I thought about it, every single story I've written has at least one main character who is grappling with a mental health challenge. And they're not good or bad guys, so to speak. They're just people. And I think it's if you're going to write it, as you did, Penelope, give them the most charitable interpretation you can. They could still do bad things, but it's going to come across as a sympathetic reading. Other questions from our folks out there in the wider community?
I have one last point. You don't have to write it in fiction. You can write it in a journal. You can keep it to yourself if you would like to. So it doesn't have to be like bare your soul to the world and publish it out there. You can just write all your darkest feelings and start to unravel them and do some therapy in a journal. You don't have to do it publicly.
I think I'd like to add to that too. Like, if you do decide to write it publicly, be prepared for people to misunderstand you. Like, if you're not at that place with where you're at, don't write it down. Don't be, if you're not prepared to take that kind of criticism and not like take it personally.
Because everyone's going to have some critique, no matter what.
No matter what. Yeah.
I see Kaufman on my Hollywood Squares screen here.
Trouble.
Yeah, Kaufman's here. Everybody, stop talking. No, this has been an absolutely phenomenal conversation. I've been listening in, and let me tell you, there were at least 20 points where I wanted to hop in and join the conversation. But I'm like, nope, I'm not going to be everywhere. I won't be everywhere, I promise. But this has been really, really powerful. And I think listening to each of your perspectives, talking about fear of failure, fear of success, your personal stories, how it's either helped or detracted from your individual writing processes has been phenomenal. And I can tell just from seeing the chat that a lot of our writers in the community are getting a lot of value out of it as well. Like, we all struggle with mental health, and especially with mental health problems as it pertains to writing. Like, it's not easy to be a successful writer in this day and age, and then trying to balance that on top of whatever crazy life craziness we're going through. It can be a lot for a lot of people. I know with all the writers I've spoken with and met this past year, there's so many who are held back by things that they end up dealing with or through as a result of mental health obstacles. So this has been very, very powerful. Yeah. I just want to say, like, thank you all for joining in this discussion. This has been pretty phenomenal. How are you guys feeling about our mental health discussion?
I enjoyed.
I love the multiple aspects everyone comes at it. Like, I know Laura mentioned being laid off work. I'm coming at it from like having multiple people needing my time situation. And then we've talked about the spiritual side from Chris, and so and Penelope definitely brought up of like healing from past trauma and stuff. So I love that everyone brought up a unique background, and I think that's what's beautiful, right? For me, the beautiful thing about the mental health journey, and as it pertains to writing, is we infuse our experiences into our writing. Sometimes it's trauma, sometimes that's just taking a break from something, and it's different for everybody. I don't think for any writer in the community, any writer out there, there's really one size fits all approach to how we explore mental health, how we explore experience, and then how we go about from either healing or leveraging it. It's different for everyone. And I think this has been a very, very beautiful conversation. I just want to say thank you. First off, Pat, you've been phenomenal at helping to moderate our conversation. Like, you were the perfect candidate for it. I really appreciate it, my friend.
It's a pleasure.
Make sure I got that. There we go. Make sure I got the applause.
I do it
there.
For the applause. Yeah.
But I really appreciate all of you guys for joining. Now, I know for anybody who wants to check out any of these guys, I know we have all of the ads and the links for each of you is posted down in the YouTube description. But before I kick you guys off the screen, I would say like maybe starting with Pat, if each of you guys want to just quick advertisement, like where can people find you, or what are you sharing right now?
All right, I'll start. And thanks, fellow panelists, for being so willing to share so openly. This is a very personal topic, and it's one that could have just fallen flat. And so thanks for your involvement, your engagement. This is my first novel. It's called Fire Horse. It deals with a couple whose son went missing, and the remains are found after 4 years. They're living separate lives, and they have to come together for a memorial. Deals with grief, there is definitely a mental health angle there, so please check it out. You can find me at Author Pat Only on Instagram and Facebook, and I am working on a collection of darker short stories and a second novel called Baltic Avenue due out next spring.
Awesome. And I'll pass it up to you, Miss Laura Nettles.
I'm Laura Nettles. I mostly write horror. I have my collection called Tiny Shivers out. There are 101 in here, plus some illustrations somewhere. The best one. I promise. They're in there. So these are horror.
Oh, that is so cool.
50 of them are 100-word short stories. But
Wow.
yeah, so they range from cosmic horror to psychological to holiday food horror. So it is in KU. And I will be around on the YouTubes. Laura Nettles.
Yay. I love it. Natalie, I love you had it pulled up. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's me. I will be around, and I'm still in the query trenches, so if I ever get an agent, you'll see that video.
All right, excellent. And everyone knows Miss Penelope Hartley.
Hello. Yes. So I just wanted to say it's always nice to come into these community sessions and talk about things that are very important to me, and to see that other people have similar trials and tribulations as I have. So thank you all very much for that. It is nice not to be alone in my journey. I've got, of course, Shira's Requiem, the book that we talked about a little bit, my spiritual journey towards my unbreaking my heart. Follows the story of Sebastian. He's a 1970s actor who's suddenly starts seeing visions of a young girl and also a very dark entity called the Contagion. So if you want to check that out, it is always free at the link somewhere. You can always find me at penelopehartley.com.
Woo! All right. And I was like, which side of the screen? Chris, take it away.
So I'm Chris. I am a tarot reader. I use my tarot cards to help writers write their stories faster. So instead of writing with draft 1, you're actually writing with draft 10. Currently, right now, I just self-published my own short story called Duncan, the Gay Teenage Witch.
Ooh.
It's only episode 1, so there's going to be episode 2 is written. It's with the editors right now, and I need to get the cover made. But it's 13-year-old witch boy going to magic school, kind of like with not Harry Potter, trying to stay as far away from that as possible. But it's Monster High and Sabrina the Teenage Witch mixed. So all of my stories are going to have an LGBTQ lead. And if you are interested in having exploring tarot cards with your projects, that's what I have 80 decks for. It's if you want to find me, it's chrislily.tv. That's where I'm at. And this is all of my social media. It's either going to be Chris Lily TV or chrislily.tv on pretty much everything. So, but that's what I do.
Awesome. And over to Miss Natalie Locke.
Yes, I'm Natalie Locke on YouTube, Writer Locke on Instagram, TikTok. I have multiple projects, but the one I'm most active right now on is Instagram. There's other things I'm doing on TikTok, but it'll take time. Again, putting myself first and not trying to overwork myself. Got 2 books that I co-authored with Chained Author. We got 1,000 Words to Get Started already out. I posted in the Discord story promo channel the links to 1,000 Words to Get Started, and then the pre-order link for 1,000 Words to Ignite Romance, which will be out January 7th. And I'm not sure if I can mention this, but these two are giveaways.
Woo! Oh my goodness. Oof. Man, wait, did I just hear the word giveaway? I think it's
What?
going to be about time for a giveaway.
A
So
giveaway?
thank you guys all for joining me, because I feel like everyone in the community is probably ready and excited to be able to win something for free. I don't even know what the next giveaway item is. I guess we'll have to pull it up. But thank you all for joining us today. This discussion has been mind-blowing, phenomenal. I hope some of you guys will join us for the writing game in just a little bit. Because let me tell you, this is going to be a writing game to remember. The last time we did a writing game on the channel, we came out with Gandalfina, Wizard, Space, Princess. And that was quite a story. Quite
Mermaid,
Mermaid,
wizard.
yeah, mermaid.
Mermaid,
I don't
Wizard,
know.
Space, Princess. And she went on quite a journey. So we're going to be hopping into the writing game in just in a couple hours. I hope some of you guys will join. It's going to be quite an experience, I promise. And with that, if you guys want to find any of these authors, it's all their stuff is linked down in the YouTube description down below. I can attest to almost all of these guys are great writers. I think the only one I haven't read yet is Chris. I just haven't read your stuff yet. It's on my to-do list. I get asked to read
Offended.
so many things every single day, and my first question is like, do you have an audiobook? Because I don't even have enough time to read what I want to read. But guys, thank you all for joining me. I'll let you get going, and we'll see who's going to win our free giveaway. Thank you so much, all. All right, perfect. So let's get right into the free giveaway. The Matter of a Memoir. Oof, man, this is going to be good. So this is the memoir that we are going to be winning. And let's see. So you could win a copy of this. This is a framework to help lay down the bones of your story. And perfect. If you want to win, type this into the screen, hashtag memoir. So type in memoir into the chat if you want to be eligible to win. We got 2 minutes, and the clock starts when I can remember to share my screen again. All right, and the clock starts now. So definitely go type into the chat hashtag memoir if you want to be entered to win this free giveaway. Type in hashtag memoir into the chat if you want to win this free giveaway. Hashtag memoir into the chat if you want to win with only 133. So let's see what this is. So the memoir, a copy of The Matter of a Memoir, a workbook that will help you work through some of the most painful memories while preparing you to share those stories. Through a variety of exercises, you'll learn how to use your senses to draw on readers, what kind of details matter, suggestions for structure, and why you should let your emotions loose. Wow. Literally, talk about what a perfect giveaway following the mental health discussion. And let me tell you guys, with our next guest, with Anna, this is going to be perfect because we're actually going to be exploring how to transform your personal experiences into a universal story. So for those of you who love the mental health discussion, this is literally perfect for transforming this trauma, the experiences that passed into that perfect, whether it's a memoir or maybe into some of your characters. So type hashtag memoir into the chat to be eligible. All right, and we on the clock. So 23, 22, counting down, and we are almost there to win a copy of The Matter of a Memoir. Type in hashtag memoir to be entered, and let's see who will win. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and all right, so let's see. We are entering. Let's see who wins the giveaway. Drum roll. All right, and Mira, congratulations. I was like, Mira. I'm pretty sure Mira. So, Mira, congratulations. Sorry if I butchered your name. But if you won, I was like, let me go pull up the link. If you won our giveaway, I will definitively be prepared with the link that I need at some point. All right, let's see. Bear with me. Uno momento. And let me pull up this link for you so we can get you filled out here. All right, perfect. So, Mira, congratulations. Congratulations. Great job on winning that. Really, really nice work. All right, Mira. So if you want to go claim your prize, there's the giveaway winner form right there. Make sure to go to the giveaway winner form. I just dropped that in the chat. Go to the giveaway winner form, fill out the details so that way we can get you a copy of that, of the Matter of a Memoir item. That's super cool. Actually, I wish I could win that. That was a really cool item. So that is our giveaway. And don't worry. Let's say you didn't win that time. Well, you're in luck because we got many more giveaways coming up. But now we're going to be hopping into our next presentation with, let me pull this up, How to Transform Your Personal Experiences into a Universal Story with author Anna Sekera. So we're going to be hopping right into this presentation. Anna's going to show you how to transform your personal experiences. We will mine some memories and learn how to transform them into a beautiful story filled with universal themes and feelings. Perfect. This is the perfect thing to hop into. So without further ado, let me welcome and bring to the stage author Anna Sekera. Welcome to the stage, my friend. Welcome, welcome.
Hi. How are you?
I am doing phenomenal. I know, literally just listening to the mental health conversation, I'm like ready to start writing a memoir right now. And I don't even write memoirs and I don't even know how to. So like, I feel like I'm going to be able to get a lot of value out of your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so should I start or?
Absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll let you take center stage here. You can start. Feel free to share if there's anything you want to share on screen. We'll help moderate the comments, and then we'll make sure to pull up the questions at the end for you.
Okay, so let me share. Let me see if I know how to share this one. Can you guys see it? Do you see it?
Let's
No.
see. Let me pull it up. So yeah. So okay, right at the bottom in the present option, that should give you the option to be able to share it with the audience.
So put share screen. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Share screen. Okay. Okay. I think I got it. Okay. Do you guys see it now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going to let you take it away and just holler at me if you need any help.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm very excited to be here. I do write mostly picture books and now chapter books. So this is my site if you want to communicate with me, annafiction.com. That's my name. That's some of my picture books that I have been publishing. So you can see, you can say, oh, but I don't write picture book. I write YA or middle grade or even adult or fantasy. I think you can apply that to any book. We just heard people talking about, like during the mental health presentation, how, you know, you write about an ex-boyfriend or something that happened to you will show up in your story. So it's very important to know how to handle that in a way that your readers will also enjoy, right? So that's what we talk about. So tears are words that needs to be written is a quote from Paulo Coelho. He's a Brazilian writer. I am from Brazil. You can notice that I have a strong accent, and I'm sorry about that. Okay. So what I wanted to do first is to mine. So if you have paper, a pen, or if you have write in the computer, your phone, whatever. I want you to think about a special moment in your life. Normally, when I do that presentation, I have many different moments. It can be a tradition with your family. It can be a moment that you are using your book, or a moment that you think you can relate to something you're going to be in your book. Like if you want to write a scary book, you may try to remember something that was scary for you. If you want to write a humor book, maybe something that was funny for you. So just think about any special moment for you, or moments that you had with your kids, grandkids. I'm a teacher too, so maybe with your students. And I will give you 2 minutes for you to brainstorm moments in your life, and maybe choose one that you think it's really important, that was really like stand out for you, just so we do like a little practice how to do it. But as I said, you can choose any special moment in your life or in the life of someone you know. So I'm going to put my timer and we'll start brainstorming. Okay, 30 more seconds. Okay, time is up. Of course, I always tell the writers, if you are super inspired to keep writing, you have to keep writing something like, oh my gosh, I think this idea will be good to use in my story, in a picture book or your novel or whatever. Keep writing. Of course, that's what we are here for, right? To get inspired. But it's very important when you're writing, of course, to find the emotion of that moment, right? Was that moment super scary? Was that moment super sad? What was the emotion? So we're going to talk really quickly about the emotions. And I want you to know that all my picture books were based on something that I went through. But even though it's completely different of the original story, the emotion of the story, how I felt or how I felt the kid felt, because it's mainly a lot of memories from my kids. It's in there. And like when we were doing the mental health, like one of the panelists said, like how when she was writing, she discovered she was kind of writing about her ex-boyfriend and how she discovered things like that. So if you channel the emotion, even if the story is not the same, if you've changed, your story is going to be much more stronger. That's what happens to me when I wrote Abuela Super Capa. Was the story that I wrote as when my mom died, and it was about her. So it had a lot of emotion. So we have some of the emotions here that we're going to talk about. And I want you to be thinking about what emotion do you think stand out for you, considering your special moment that you chose. Okay, so who am I is a question that we always ask ourselves as writers too, right? Am I a famous writer? Do I have the right to be a writer? And the kids ask questions too. So in my book, that was my debut book, Bella's Recipe for Success, illustrated by Geraldine Rodriguez. It is about a girl who's trying to figure it out. What is she good at? What is her talent? And she will have to learn that she's going to have to go through a lot of mistakes to find the right thing. You can also have, and this story was based on my daughter because she was very gifted. She is a gifted girl, and she always thought like she had to be perfect. So it is a story about you don't need to be perfect. You can make mistakes. So I could try, even though this girl in the story is not gifted, it's just a regular girl, I could put the emotion of feeling like I'm not good at anything. I'm not perfect. I'm not the best. You can have fear. I see that a lot of you write scary stories, and I love scary stories. I love spooky stories. So if you want to catch that feeling, as I said, you may channel that emotion by mining memories of moments that you had fear and other people had fear, because we react differently to different emotions, right? So in this book, As If Your Babysitter is a Bruja, by me and Irena Freitas, is also about a girl. It's almost Halloween, and she thinks her babysitter is a real bruja. So there is I had to catch that moment, the fear, even though the story was based on a funny moment when my daughter thought I was a bruja. She said that I was not her real mom. I was a bruja, and I was not that mean. I can guarantee you, it was just her vision. Of course, you can have sadness, right? And this is in the Abuela Supercapa that I wrote when my mom died. So I poured a lot of emotion in there. Or challenges that you have to accomplish. In La Mala Suerte is Following Me. That was the last book that I had published. He had to get rid of La Mala Suerte, the bad luck, or he would not win his tournament, his soccer tournament. And this one is about a girl who is scared of a roller coaster, even though she's very brave and she doesn't want to tell her friends that she's scared of the roller coaster. And of course, the emotion of love. So we have some books here, and I'm sorry, most my books gonna be picture books, but as I said, you can of course find books in all kinds of genres and age group. And we have this A Grandma's Magic that is really beautiful. And we also can talk about connections, community, right? This book, I love this book, Room for Everyone. It has a lot of sounds. It's very lyrical. It has a lot of onomatopoeia and things. And it's about a kind of a truck or a shuttle. And they keep carrying people on the way. They're going to the beach, and everybody, there is always room for one more. So it's really funny. For travelers everywhere, may you always find comfort, joy, and welcome strangers on your journey. So I really love this book, and there's some other books here. I love Kevin Hanks. If you like picture books, you know him, and he used a lot of humor to talk about life, things like having a new sibling. So we found that you can use storytelling as a way to transport people into your experience and make them live your memories. It's like a way to transfer memories across brain. So I do believe like when we are writing, even if it's not conscious, we are always putting a lot of things that we went through, a lot of our experiences and our feelings that we went through our whole life. And so let's see, right? All the emotions that you felt during that special day. Okay, so if your special day was like a wedding, or it was an achievement, like you graduated somewhere, or a scary moment for you, tell me all the emotions. Well, you're not going to tell me, but you're going to write on your notebook, and which one stands out for you. Make sure to add lots of heart to your story. But remember, it is fiction, and we're going to talk about that after. So I'm going to let's give you a minute and a half, okay, for you to write all the emotions about that special day. Okay, so let's see. Anybody wants to share? I know you're not going to be talking, but I'm a teacher, so I love knowing what my students are doing. So if you want to share on the chat, what are the emotions that stand out for you? What emotion did you feel the most during this event? Either you or the character. It might be like an emotion for somebody else. It might be a moment that was important for your daughter or for your grandkid or for a friend. So if you want to write it down, some of the emotions: snowboard, sleigh, riding, fun. That sounds really fun. Anybody else wants to share some of their moments? And okay, so let's see. Okay, so yeah, it's very important that you think about the emotion of the moment and try to pour those emotions into your story, because the readers wanted to feel emotions, right? The stories we tell literally make the world. If you want to change the world, you need to change your story. So in here, it's just a little bit what I'm talking about. You're going to write the story, and your experiences will be there, sometimes even subconsciously. But you have to make sure that you're considering your target market, you're considering the engagement piece of the story, so it doesn't get too boring or too complicated, because you want to try to say the whole story. So never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So, for example, when I wrote the story about If Your Babysitter Is a Bruja, it was about my daughter. We went to the beach, and when we got there, she didn't want to leave ever. So one time I had to tell her, no, now we have to go. And I'm a teacher, so I did my teacher's voice. And she was like, you were not my mom, you were a bruja. And I had to walk 3 blocks carrying her, yelling that I was a bruja. So this story stayed like marinating in my head. And I said, I want to write a story. But when I wrote, I changed the mom to be a babysitter. I changed that to be a Halloween event. So I changed it a lot. But the emotion, the fun, the humor was still there, because she was thinking about, someone being a babysitter. So that's how I wrote that story. And they say here, I don't know if this is Mark Twain or old Irish proverb. If you know, let me know, because that's what it says there. So I don't know. Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Rajani
Hold
LaRocca,
on.
and
This Rajana LaRocca is a very famous author in the Kids Lit, and she did this video for us when I was teaching this class. So I'm going to put a little bit of the video, because she talks about the importance of changing the story according to your target market and, of course, your goals, right? So let's hear a little bit.
I'm excited to tell you about my process for.
Oh, so sorry. I don't know what I did. I'm very clumsy, and I'm always making
Hi,
mistakes.
everyone. This is Rajani LaRocca, and I'm excited to tell you about my process for writing Where Three Oceans Meet. So this story started as a conversation with someone in which I described a trip that I took with my family to a place called Kanyakumari at the very tip of India, where they say 3 oceans meet: the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, and the Arabian Sea. I took this trip as a child when I visited my extended family in India. We meandered from Bangalore all the way through South India and saw all kinds of wonderful sights until we finally ended up at Kanyakumari, where I thought I could see 3 different colors of water meeting. And I thought of all the small moments I spent with my family and how they were so precious to me. And I knew I had to write this story. So here's the part where I took my personal story and changed it to be, I hope, more resonant and more universal. That trip through South India, I took with other relatives, not just my mom and my grandmother. But in order to focus on the number 3, I pared it down to just a girl, her mother, and her grandmother. And then I multiplied the number of 3s in the text and drew contrast between the 3 characters, why they wanted to go on the trip, what they packed to wear, how they liked their food, and so on. The scene where Sejal overhears her mom and her grandma talking about how much they miss each other really happened to me. details of having the sniffles and the grandmother peeling musambi, which is kind of citrus fruit, and feeding her really happened to me. And it evoked so much love that I wanted to include those details. But when I woke up, I didn't say anything to them. But in this story, I had Sejal wake up and say, I never want this trip to end. Because in this story, all that Sejal wants is to see the end of the earth. And this is the moment at which she realizes it's not really the destination, but the journey that matters to her. And she wants to stay like this forever.
The braid metaphor came out of my subconscious and wasn't based on my own experience, but I thought it was a nice way to tie the